Hey guys, it's Francesca Dominique, and we are back this week on MMA Power Hour for another betting and fight odds segment. We're going to be looking at this weekend's event, UFC 261, Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman 2, okay? And we have 3 title fights. I am so excited. We have Namajunas versus Weili Zhang, and Jessica Andrade versus Valentina Shevchenko, and then of course the main event, Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman. I am so excited. This whole card is just bangers. So please, MMA gods, don't have anything happen to any of these fights on this card. Hey buddy, he's always helping me out. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. I decided to go ahead and go with 3 picks this week. One of them is going to be a prop bet within the parlay, but I'm going to be taking Anthony Smith at plus 160, Rose Namajunas at plus 160, and Rodrigo Vargas versus Zhang over 1.5 rounds. So those are going to be my 3, and let's just get into why I think that. So first up on the picks, Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Croot. Anthony Smith comes in here at 34-16, Jimmy Croot at 12-1. Anthony Smith did get a win in the bag versus Devin Clark in the first round via triangle choke in his last outing, and then he had quite the rough go of Alexander Rakic and Glover Teixeira. The Glover Teixeira fight was particularly rough to watch as a spectator, but man is Anthony Smith tough. The reason why I'm leaning him here is Smith here is because Jimmy Croot, I mean, he's good, man. He's good, and he's a good athlete. He's fast. He's large. He's a very large human being. Very talented, very talented. The only thing that I kind of am like about is kind of like the IQ in there. Sometimes the decision making isn't necessarily the best. And I mean, at 25 and already in the UFC, I mean, obviously there's something there, you know, and obviously he belongs in the UFC. But as far as decision making, going up against a very wily veteran and Anthony Smith, I kind of question that. Against Misha Cirkunov, which has been his only loss here in the UFC for Jimmy Croot, he was just kind of making the wrong decisions, and that's what led to that submission. I mean, obviously a Peruvian necktie, you don't get hit up with that every day, you know, but at the same time, like, he chose to stay down there with Misha Cirkunov, and like he knows he's dangerous down there. And like I feel like as an overall mixed martial artist, Anthony Smith is legit. You know, he's a veteran, he has the experience, he's black belt in jiu-jitsu, so those takedowns, he's gonna have, I say that, you know, this fight probably takes place on the feet most likely, but I do think as far as like technical striking straight to the target, Anthony Smith does have, I feel, not necessarily a wider, like a more variety of techniques as far as striking goes, and especially when he gets in close, then that's kind of plays into his advantage. Even though he is so long, he does have good elbows, he does fight well on the inside, and that's something that Jimmy Croot is going to have to he is going to have to close the distance here. I believe he has 72-inch reach versus 76, so there are a couple inches there for Anthony Smith, but to me, I'm mainly going with Anthony Smith here based on that IQ. And Jimmy Croot, I mean, in his last 2 fights, he wasn't really put in a position in which that tested that fully. But against Misha Cirkunov, I was like, why do you keep going down there? You're clearly better in a certain area. And he kept going to that spot. And so I'm like, okay, that makes me a little hesitant to pick him. So I'm going to be taking Anthony Smith at plus 160. Jimmy Croot comes in as minus 195. So, I mean, there is going to be one of those things. I'd love to hear your thoughts, people's thoughts on this matchup. Anthony Smith kind of coming in short notice here. But I do think this is a good matchup. It's a good test for Jimmy Croot, and it's not far out for him to win this by any means, you know. But I am going to be taking Anthony Smith at plus 160. Next up, we're going to be looking at Rose Namajunas versus Weili Zhang for the 115-pound belt here. Rose Namajunas comes in here at 9-4. Sometimes it's hard to forget that, like, she only has 13 fights. That's crazy to me. Weili Zhang comes in here at 21-1, and she's tough, man. And she's gonna come in there like a train, and she hits so hard, like so hard. Like, it's unbelievable how hard she hits. Now, one thing that she does do when she does throw strikes, especially kicks, she doesn't really take her head offline. And Rose Namajunas is getting better. Like, she is developing, she is getting better, and I think a lot of that is taking place up here. Like, her mental is a very interesting thing to me, as far as how she views her development and how she looks back on her fights. I really like her range management. One thing that did kind of make me nervous is against Jessica Andrade. I think this is sort of a similar fight. I do think Weili Zhang offers a lot more technical aspects about her game, but Rose Namajunas against Andrade, she was doing so incredibly well, but took so much damage in the later rounds of their last meeting. It was crazy. Like, that was a back and forth fight on both sides. Like, both sides were super dope. But I'm just saying, like, when Rose gets hit, she starts to slow down a lot. And especially in her retraction speed, like, she'll get her hands out there, but as far as retracting them back and getting them back, she tends to be a little slow once she starts getting hit. And Weili Zhang hits hard. Like, you think Jessica Andrade hits hard? Like, Weili Zhang hits like a train, okay, at 115 pounds. This is such a good matchup, and I'm really excited for both sides just to see this fight, because I know, like, 5 rounds is perfect for this. Like, 3 rounds, I'm like, wouldn't do it justice, you know? And especially with the experience that Rose Namajunas has had at the highest level, I do think that this belt is within her grasp to take, or to take back, I guess, not necessarily from Weili Zhang, but just to have it back in her possession. And she comes in here at plus 160. Let's check out Weili Zhang, minus 200. You know, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think that's a fair line there. I definitely think, yeah, out of all the title fights, this is the closest in the odds, and I do think that is correct. That's a correct assessment there. And it's interesting too how, as far as movement in the lines, there hasn't been a lot. So I think people are very tentative to put their money on this because it's such a close matchup. But I'm really excited. I'm going to be taking Rose Namajunas at plus 160. So this next one is actually a pretty interesting matchup from my perspective, at least. We have Zhao, who comes in here at 17-3. He's the number 1 155-pounder coming out of China right now. Very highly touted. Trains at the PI currently. So this one's interesting. He's going to be facing Rodrigo Vargas out of Mexico. He's 11-4, currently on a 2-fight losing streak. But he's had that illegal knee KO against Brock Weaver, and there was actually another illegal knee KO on that card. I believe it was Michelle Pereira. Well, not necessarily a KO, but just an illegal knee. But this is a really interesting fight. I mean, Zhao, you know, highly touted, as I said before. Like, coming out of the PI though, I mean, they can't corner. So this is going to be really interesting. There's a few fighters, Chinese fighters, that are on this card that have no coaches, right? Because it's like a conflict of interest. So I think that's really interesting. And at 21 years old, you know, who knows? UFC debut, who knows, you know? But that experience of 20 fights, that's really going to help him coming in here, making his UFC debut against a very tough Rodrigo Vargas. Like any Mexican fighter, you know, he's coming there to knock your head off. Like, he's not here to play games. You know what I'm saying? And on a 2-fight losing streak, his back is up against the wall here. In his last outing against Brock Weaver, you know, he was winning that fight, you know, and then he threw that, and it was like, you know, but I don't know. For me, I was very excited about that fight because both of them bang. Vargas is going to come forward. He is going to be in your face, and you know, he's going to fight you. And it's really interesting to see Zhang deal with that type of pressure. Now, he has fought fighters that are like this, so this is not necessarily a new test as far as just the question that's being asked directly from the opponent, if that makes sense. But there are other elements, such as no coaches, you know, UFC debut, and being 21 years old. Like, I think that all is going to play a part here. But I mean, if he can withstand this test, I mean, he's definitely someone to be reckoned with. Has good takedown defense, good switching of stances, good speed. He does tend to kind of leave his hands out there a little bit long, and not necessarily like he's slow coming back to his face. He just kind of leaves them out there, which makes me a little bit nervous because Vargas is going to come forward and try to, you know, get you. As far as on the feet, that could get really interesting. You know, Zhang can fight going backwards, so I'm not necessarily worried about that. And he has pretty good takedown defense, especially up against the cage. And once when he does get taken down, he just kind of pops right back up. And that's something that Vargas does struggle with, is he'll go get the takedown, but they're able to pop back up, even though he's able to tie up the legs. And it's hard for him to kind of make a move. But I don't know. I mean, maybe the way to win here would be for Zhang to actually wrestle Vargas, because he's very comfortable being on the bottom to like lay there most of the round. And that kind of happened against Alex De Silva in Vargas's UFC debut. So who knows? He had like over 2 rounds of top control time. It was crazy. And not one time did he try to get up or get to the cage, or like there was not a lot of urgency. He was very he was throwing stuff up from the bottom, but he was just very comfortable down there. So I do say that this does go over 1.5 rounds. I think that although, you know, Zhang is very composed, very patient. I think he's going to do, you know, the feeling out process in the beginning, be able to see how fast Vargas is coming at him, what type of strength he has, and especially power in his punches. And then from there, he's going to make a play. Now, he does have the ability to get drawn into a brawl, and he'll throw down, and that's what kind of makes it exciting for this fight, is because Vargas will throw down, but he's also a fairly complete mixed martial artist. He may not be tip top on, you know, all the levels, but you know, he's a complete mixed martial artist. So I think this goes over 1.5 rounds, and that'll be coming in at -140 for that. So there we have it, folks. We're going to be taking Anthony Smith, Namajunas, and Rodrigo Vargas versus Zhang to go over 1.5 rounds. Please let me know your thoughts, your opinions. I always like to talk MMA, so please follow me on Instagram at Francesca_Dominique, and also give MMA Power Hour a follow at MMA Power Hour. This weekend is going to be so exciting. I'm actually going to be in Jacksonville, so I'm really excited for this entire event and what the UFC is doing. So let me know your thoughts, tune in, ask questions, and enjoy your weekend.